Let's see if I remember how to do this. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by DiMichele's Barbershop and Emporium, located at 6 Kirby Road in Cromwell, Connecticut, exit 21 off of I-91. DiMichele specializes in all types of men's haircuts and hot shaves. Appointments and walk-ins available. For the full schedule, check the website, DiMichele'sBarbershop.com, or call 860-502-3540. Gift cards are available in any denomination. They sell my personal favorite, their own DiMichele's water-soluble pomade. It's got a good grip. Go see my man. Tell him I sent you. Go get your ass a responsible haircut. While you're there, go to Cafe Vernaza in the back. Get you a little macchiato. Personally, my new thing is breves. I'm sure they can make you one. It's just a different ratio of froth to actual espresso. But go get one of those and something to eat. Go see my man. It's about to be the holiday season. You don't need to be looking like a shitbag. Go fucking cut your beard a little bit. Get your shit edged up. Whatever. I'm back, bitch. Been like 6 weeks. I had a major life event happen. And I had to take some time and do it right. And then I got a little bit lazy, and now I'm back. I knew I got to get back on the fucking train. All right? Stop sending me sad emails. All right? I'm about to live this life. Ha! All right. I got a bunch of fucking announcements, all right? So bear with me. First and foremost, I know it's pretty far away, but I would like everybody to make sure they are not doing anything on Saturday, January 12th, the night of, because on January 12th, Saturday, at Cherry Street Station, at 7 p.m., Front Towards Enemy is having a reunion show, FTE. You might not know them if you're young. If you're older, you definitely know them. They were a very influential hardcore band in Connecticut, Central Connecticut, Bristol, New Britain area, back in late 90s. They fucking rip. It's fucking Harley Carrera. You know that motherfucker is Tradition Cycles. Make sure I said that right. Yeah, we all know that. Steve Karp, formerly of Custom Culture Tattoo in Plainville. He just shreds. He used to be in, 100 Demons. He's one of the most funny and cynical old men I know on Facebook. I can't wait to fucking hang out with him. And Beaner, our boy Chris, also from Custom Culture Tattoo. I don't know if he's still over at Liberty. He may be. But make sure you got nothing going on that night, because it's going to be a show. And they're also playing with Dissolve. Oh my God, dude. A Dissolve and FTE show is going to be so fucking sick. And then Intercourse, Con Etiquette, Down with Rent. $7 to get in. You can't be talking about this motherfucking CTHC if you ain't there, bitch. I've been that. All right. Now, today is Thanksgiving. I'm releasing this podcast today so you guys will have something to listen to with your families on the way to give thanks for everything that you've gotten this year. So make sure you give thanks, motherfucker. My guest is my bud, Brett Maddux, and I'm going to try to keep talking at the same time while I look through my phone, because he's got an event that I should have written down the last couple minutes, because then we wouldn't have this lull of entertainment right now. Let's fucking find it. Either way, my buddy Brett is a poet from Hartford, Connecticut. Brett grew up out in Iowa, and he was active in the hardcore punk scene out there for a time. He's a little about 35. He's a little younger than me, and he speaks a little bit to that. He speaks to Modern Life is War and his connection with them, and him being friends with them and stuff, and learning about all the different places they go when they do the hardcore show all over the motherfucking earth. We get into talking about poems, and he reads, I think, like 4 or 5. He had a book just come out. It's called Blackbird 4 p.m. Listen, I don't do much reading anymore, and I definitely haven't read poems in a while. You know what I mean? But I sat down with this book and I was really, really, really impressed, to the point where I'm asking a poet to come on my podcast. It doesn't sound like it's going to add up, but it is awesome. Brett has a connection to the area. He's got a connection to the Hartford area. He's got a connection to the hardcore scene. And now he's made a book, which is one of my aspirations that I want to do. I got a couple friends that have put out books, and I've always wanted to do that. And maybe Brett will show me how to do it one day. We're gonna fucking get into it, man. Like, I hope y'all have a good Thanksgiving. Love your family, love your friends, love each other, and fucking let's make ends. Oh shit, you heard that shit? Oh shit! Rookie move. Clipped it without telling you about the event information for Brett's new book coming out, Blackbird, 4 p.m. The Blackbird release extravaganza is on November 23rd, Friday, November 23rd at 8 p.m. at the Warehouse, 3580 Main Street, Hartford, and that's WHERE House, not where. Okay? Have a good time. Go check them out if you can. Everybody be safe. I'll check you in a week. Peace.
I break bread, 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 break
I wouldn't even fucking know how to say this again because I haven't done it in like 2 months. I was just about to hit the button and be like, "Whoa, what's up, that?" Like I don't have anything going. But I do know that I need to tell everybody who you are, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am here with my friend Brett Maddux, and he's got a book out. But we're talking about him. We're going to talk about him as the man. But I brought him on the podcast today to talk about this book that he just released. Blackbird, 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Put out by, which is why press?
It's put out by Silk House Publishing, but I can explain it all at some point. But the publisher.
But they have something to do with you.
With Which Is Why Press, yep.
Okay.
And Silk House.
Okay. So, yeah, dude, fucking welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
I just think it's like, someone from Hartford doesn't put out a fucking book usually.
Right.
And if they do, they're few and far between.
And it's always so nice when they do. There's been a few good ones lately, and it really makes me happy.
And I figured, this is totally, with your background and the way I know you, and I just thought it was totally appropriate to like get you to, everybody can read your book, but then now they might be able to listen to it and get the fucking why, So you are a poet. I'm a rapper.
Right.
There's a lot, but we also cut our teeth in the hardcore scene. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate, song structure, shit like that. I don't know anything about like poetry, like terms and like how you put together, your fucking lines and stanzas. Mm-hmm. But I know how to do it my way. So we have like a kinship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Growing up, all my friends were musicians, and most of them still are. But I could never like play music, and I didn't know how to do any of that, and I didn't really have a good voice, so I couldn't really sing. But I liked traveling with them, and I would just sell the merch and stuff. But all I could do was write, and so that's sort of like. But I do think of the poems as like songs. Like I get to sing my version of a song to my friends, the same way they get to play beautiful music for me. I like the way. Like I always think about how a lot of what this book is about the way my friends have always inspired me that way, and it's watching them do whatever it is they do. My friend Josh, who's like a drummer, who's so like you watch him play drums and you're like, fuck. Like,
I got a couple of friends like that.
And like my friend Josh, who plays guitar, and like Chad and like everyone who lives in Hartford basically at this point. And like, you know, you think about how these people are, you watch them and you're just like truly stunned by the gift that they have, and like how you almost want to give that back through, I want to be better at mine thing. So you, when you see me do it, you're like, whoa, cool. Like he's good too.
That's how I feel about my friends that play guitar and that can like solo really crazy.
Right.
And it's like, this is something you loved and you've always heard, like if you're into like fucking metal or hardcore and you're like, this is something I've always appreciated. I don't think I'll ever be able to do it.
Right.
It takes like a certain mind.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah.
So I wasn't gonna have you come on and not read the fucking parts of the book, because that would have been irresponsible.
Oh, sure.
There's probably has been somebody that has done an interview somewhere on a person that wrote a book and didn't know a goddamn thing about the book.
Right.
I know a couple things about this book, and I'm happy to say that, because sometimes I'm lazy, sometimes I don't have time. Dude, you want to see something funny? Where's my fucking phone? I have in my calendar, I reminded myself, you're dominating that day of the calendar.
Wow.
It's a reminder to read some of the books.
Yes.
So before you came, you know, I went through, and to be completely honest, I've had to do so much reading and writing for school since 2008 that it's a fucking chore for me, and I hate it.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But don't get me wrong, I'll have those things that I do like to read, like back in the day, like I hated to read, but I would read a full fucking Star Wars novel because I was that invested in the idea.
Right.
You know, like, and I'll read about stuff like weird stuff, but it's like it kind of sucked it out of me. And now that like it's over, it's been over for like a year, I have been doing some different reading, and I picked that up, and I was like, I didn't think it was gonna be a chore, like more like mentally, like I don't like to read, and I got sucked in.
Right. I always tell my a lot of the folks I work with don't do, or sort of, they don't pay a lot of mind to poetry. I guess a lot of really people don't pay a lot of mind to poetry, and so that's not their fault. But
it runs in different circles.
Right. But when I try to get people to buy the book, I always say that it's the easiest form of reading, because this, like what I do in the morning is I'll just go out and have a cigarette and read a poem. You know, it doesn't take that long to read one poem every day, and most people just don't think about it. And so I just want people to think about it. It's like, why don't you just go read imagine how much more connected you'd feel.
Yeah.
To other things, to other people's experiences. Read different poetry, read everything.
But the thing, I think poetry gets a bad rap because they see, your general population sees only your amateur starting poet. Right. And then they're like, that shit sucks. Right. But they've never turned themselves on to some real poetry, like people that do that shit. You know what I mean?
I think.
And then they turn their back before they know what it is.
Or they get sort of turned on to something that's the first thing they see is really weird and it doesn't make any sense, and
they
they're
think
really
they're
angry at that.
It's all going to be like this.
And it's like, but that's what every art form is. It's like there's in music, there's really weird shit, and there's really basic, easy to understand shit. And in painting, there's somebody who just paints the most obvious painting of a boat, and then there's someone who paints like a one line across the page and he says that's a boat.
That's the boat.
And it's like, what the fuck? There's like weird shit in every art form, and so like you have to just engage with the variety and find where maybe this isn't the one, but like maybe you'll find one where you're like, oh, I really like this, and I'll tell you, someone, there's gonna be something.
I gravitate towards the weird.
Yeah.
I also gravitate towards the dark. And I never knew that you do have a dark side.
Yeah, I mean, well,
before I like read this book, like I knew I had a pretty good like read on the kind of person you were, and then I read the book, and it's not all dark, but there were some lines in there that I'm just like, it's not dark, it just is like. It's like real life forceful, but there you have a couple lines that if I took from there and screamed them, they could be in like some sick, like a total black metal band.
Right.
Like there was a couple lines and I was just like, because you break them down on the left side of the page and it just keeps going, and you'll read it and it's kind of like, you know, pieces put together, but then you'll have just like a 2-bar thing that totally rhymes the way people think things rhymes.
Right.
And the last one I read, I was like, yo, that's fucking evil as fuck.
Right. There's a poem in the book about George W. Bush, and how he's a terrible war criminal, and how like now that Donald Trump's president, people are like, oh, wasn't George Bush great? And it's like, no, he was not. He killed millions, hundreds of thousands of innocent people for sure.
A lot of people are like, I wish George Bush would come back and be like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. You just don't remember how.
Do you want more buildings to come down?
Right. There's tons of bad shit that happened, and you can't forget that because this guy's bad too. Like, you have to hold people accountable. And so there's a poem in the book that I do think of almost not as like black metal, but I think of that poem as like, that poem feels angry. It's like, don't forget that people were hurt. Like, don't say that because this president tweets bad things that was okay. Like, that was bad too, and you have to hold people to that. And so like, that poem to me is an example of, at the end, it's like people joking about it, where they're like, isn't it funny that we were so like worked up about the war in Iraq? And it's like, if it's so funny, then like, why aren't we laughing? Like, laugh. If you think it's funny, laugh. Like, there's like, some of the poems in the book feel that way, where it's like, they feel more urgent that way, or different. I wouldn't say darkness, but just much more, frankly, like, invested in the idea of like, how we hurt people. The second poem in the book's called America, and it's just about how we kill kids in this country. And there's many more of them. There's like a whole series of them sort of throughout the book that are sort of in a line of much more, I don't know, they just feel like I felt scared and I needed to say, like, you know.
Yeah, you got it out. I highlighted 5 of my favorites, and they are, my favorite is Awake, and that's 2 words. Awake, like a memorial service for someone. If Gene Wilder makes it to heaven, what death is, I am. I wanted to read that one because it sounded so fucking evil. Stoned watching I Heart Huckabees in bed with you. I thought that was going to be like poppy and happy, and it wasn't. And then I loved it because it was fucking real, and I loved it. And then I read 121 Heaven. So before I get into like any of these poems or even the setup of the book, when did you start writing poetry, and like, when did you know? You're obviously, you know, we were talking about like, you grew up in Iowa and you were like pretty heavy in the hardcore scene out there at that time. Like, you know about music, and you know about people putting out lyrics that they want the rest of the world to hear. Like, so like, do you think that's where this all started?
I don't know.
For you?
I think so, yeah. I think my friends, just being artists when we were in high school, they were all making just various different kinds of things. And along the way, I think I always wanted to write, but I didn't think that was a thing people did. And then I had I had a few actually very good English teachers in high school who sort of helped me to understand that I could just do that. Like, I was good enough at it that I could try to keep doing it. And so then I went to college in Iowa to write short stories, and I had a woman in my life named Haley Thompson who asked me if I'd ever thought about writing poems, and she helped me learn that I wanted to.
Did she see something you wrote and like was like, I gotta?
Well, no, I just took her class.
I
had to, as the major I was taking, they made you take a poetry class as if, you know, what I was writing. And when I took her class, she had us to read Robert Haas, and I had never read Robert Haas before, and I'd never felt anything like what reading that felt like, where I was like, oh fuck, I want to read this 1,000 times in a row. It felt like you heard a song you had always wanted to hear, but you just didn't know it existed. And so so she asked us to write poetry too, and I remember the first poem I wrote for her. I still remember. I remember writing it. I remember what the words to it are, and I remember I'd never felt anything like that felt before. It just felt like your body. I don't know. Like, it feels like every time I do it, I'm like, it feels like you're on fire. Like, it's like the thing you're supposed to do. And so Haley was very, very good to me and helped me learn that I wanted to do that. And so then ever since I took that class, I've never done anything other than write poetry. Like, that's all I think. It's mostly what I think about too. It's like there have been all these doors, and she opened one up and was like, here, come, this is where you go. And I've just been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. So you grew up in Iowa.
Yeah.
And tell me about the hardcore. Where did you, Des Moines? No, is that Iowa?
No, I grew up mostly we moved around a little bit, but mostly in Cedar Falls.
Okay.
Cedar Falls, Iowa. And then I went to college in Iowa City, which had sort of a more like, there was my friend Brooks was playing music there, but there was another band called Raccoon, which was just some weird noise band. It was much more noise and weird shit.
I'm sure I can find
It
a
was like
couple
college yeah.
Raccoon.
It was
YouTube
amazing. It was
videos.
all great to go to, but it was just like, I don't drink and I, don't do, anything. So I was just sort of like watching this weird shit, and I liked it, but, it felt a little different to me, I think. But then that ended up being sort of what I wanted to hear, which was like shit that really
Weird.
pushed me to understand like what do you think about this? Like, so that really, it was enriching to be in Iowa City, to be in a music scene and a creative scene that was challenging, that was fun to participate in, because you got to push yourself and learn about new things, which is sort of how I think Hartford's sort of like that too, where Hartford has so many people in so many different disciplines who are so uniquely gifted at the work they do that it pushes it sort of, again, like it's pushing people to sort of reimagine like why don't these things go together? Why don't you put this together and these things together? How do you collaborate? How do you grow? How can everyone grow together rather than separately? Why does one person's gift get to shine a light on someone else's? Like, how do you tell the story of each other? Which is a really beautiful thing.
When did you move here? How long have you lived in Hartford?
I moved to Hartford in 2012, January of 2012. I had done the Peace Corps with a girl named. Initially not. I had just done the Peace Corps, but there was a girl there who
You met her there.
who I fell in love with, and she was from Connecticut, and so when we got out of the Peace Corps, she wanted to come here to be near her family and stuff she knew, and so I came out here with her, and then we broke up, but I've been here ever since. So yeah, how long is that now? It's almost 7 years.
You're just like, this is where I want to settle, or was she from here?
She was from Enfield.
Oh, okay.
But this was like close. This was sort of like a central place. So, and I knew nothing else about anything. So I was like, all right, sure, let's go. And I'm so happy that happened, because I got a job I liked. So then I stayed much longer than just that relationship. And got to, I truly love Hartford. I'm so happy that I got to come here. Like, I'll stay here for the rest of my life, because it's just a great place.
It's cool because when they made those, I don't know if you were here. I don't know if this was pre-2012, but I've been living here since 1998, and I've seen this city, be like a shithole, and then I've seen this city kind of like, start to turn. You know what I mean? As far as the look, the scene of it, the shot, like just like the landscape. Until now, and in the middle of all that, they put up all these billboards on all the highways, and it was Hartford Rising Star. And then there was a commercial that went with it too. It was talking about how it's a city on the rise. And I learned about decline, and how the place could be totally desolate. In 20 years, it could look like Las Vegas and shit like that. And I was just like, well, it is. I would see those billboards, and I'd be like, no, it ain't. It's not on the rise. And now, like, how long has it been? 20 years, and I probably 2012, it's like 6 years later, it is a city that is going, and you could see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy, man. Like, there was a point when I was younger, I was like, I want to move away.
Right.
I want to move to a cooler city, like that. And like, the more time I spend here, I'm just like, I would be okay with staying here, because like things aren't like,
right.
It's good.
When I think about how deeply I love Hartford, I always think about like, I always tell my friends to come visit, because it's really wonderful to be here. But I'm just always like, I wish you were here, because you would like it so much, and it's such a truly beautiful place where you can create in an interesting way, and it's not cheap, but it's not expensive, and it's not like, it's sort of like, you can do interesting shit. You're near other places where you can do interesting shit. Like, I have so many friends who I know who are like in New York, and I love that they're there, and like, I know that that's meaningful for them too, because it's such a bigger network that they can plug into, but it's so much more expensive, and it's harder. You're much more in competition with other people who are doing creative things, as opposed to a place where you can truly grow in the art you're doing and have no real boundary other than how big you want to make it. Which at this point, I don't understand what New York is good for.
It's such a strange thing. Like, that's what it's like this thing that's built into people when they graduate high school, like I have to move to a different place to to be the best I can be. Like maybe you've had a couple bad interactions where you live and you don't want to stay there, you know, and you got to move away. But that's like a mindset of everybody like that age. Like, I'm never gonna make it here. Like, what do people that went to school in beautiful cities say? Like, I'm out of here. Like, there's something better, or I'm gonna move to, you know, somewhere worse. It's a strange way to think. Like, why can't you
what does it mean to make it here? Like, what are you trying to? I want to, like, to some extent, the vibrancy of an artistic scene is, can you pay rent and can you keep creating? Like, that's really the goal. And like, some part of that is just, can you get a day job? Can you just get a job? Like, if you can get work and then keep creating on the side, like, that's how you build a community that exists because of the need to exist, not because of any arbitrary bullshit. And that's what it feels like here, which is like, people can, you know, have a side gig. I could be a teacher, I could do whatever the fuck I do. Everyone else can do the same thing, but it's like, then you can come together and do interesting things together and support each other and be collaborative and be, you know, kind to each other in a way that makes everyone bigger and doesn't make anyone smaller. And that's what I think is such a beautiful thing. Like, when I think about Hartford, I'm like, when I tell my friends, I'm like, y'all should be here. Like, you you should want to be. Like, it's, because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean that it's not true.
Like making it, I think a lot of people think that, and they either mean making more money or like going to some place where you could, like, a musician, I gotta go here and then people will hear my music, then I'll blow up. And like, now to me at 40, making it for me is, I'm not fucking stressed out. I have time to do the things I love. I'm not broke. I'm making, you know, I'm not rich. I'll never be rich with the fucking job I do. But you can be comfortable and you could be stable and let me do the work that I do and move my profession forward and use my fucking degree to what it is. That's making it for me. I don't fucking, when I was younger, everybody would like to be fucking rich at some point in their life, but then you just hit a point where you're like, I'm good, and if I stay this way for the rest of my life, that's a fucking win, because a lot of people, that doesn't happen to.
Right. Yeah. Well, and what I think too is, like, I mean, as like when I left for the Peace Corps, it was like the first iPhone had just come out, and when I got back, most people had them, and then I had to learn sort of how to use them over time when I got to Connecticut. But as that technology increasingly is getting better and better and better, it doesn't really matter where you are. That's an irrelevance. There's no difference to whether or not you're a talented musician in Phoenix, Arizona versus Topeka, Kansas versus New York City. Like, if you are truly transcendent at the thing that you're doing, people will notice. You'll know. Like, that's how it works.
I tell everybody that, like, what's a good context? Like,
this is just a home base. This is where you sleep. You can do it here too, and just bring other people. Like, this how you can grow it here.
Yeah. And like, I think a lot of people think about that in the context of music, and they definitely think about it as an artist, but like, I've always told people, it doesn't matter about what, like, if you do the good job, if you're in your job doing well, if you're like the top of what you do in your profession, it's undeniable. Somebody's going to see you. You know what I mean? If that's what you're trying to do, market yourself to move up and be better what you want to do. The people that see it being done are going to, like, let people know. It's like, nobody's doing all this fucking, you never heard about like a sick musician that has all these crazy albums, but no one ever fucking heard of, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to get out there somewhere, you know? And like you said, if you stay where the fuck you started doing that, then that city that you wanted to move away from might be a little better, because those people are going to come to see your art, your music, you know what I mean?
And I think Hartford's so great just because there's so many people. I always think about, when I see my friends perform here, I always think about how it feels to watch these people that you love just as people, watch them growing and the gifts that they have. So watching them get stronger as performers, as musicians, as painters, as watching Hong, what she does with paper, like watching what everyone's just doing in their creative space, and watching how, like, truly brilliant they are. And like the idea that they're all so close to each other, and it's, I can see, you know, some of the greatest photography, some of the greatest paintings, some of the greatest, you know, songs, some of the greatest poetry, some of the greatest everything. And it's all right here, and everyone's just kind of like working together on it, and it feels like I don't know, it feels like beautiful to have so many truly gifted souls growing and sort of flipping that switch in their own vision at the same time, where it's like, some people who have talent but they haven't figured out what they're doing with it yet, and then you can kind of see that switch flip where they're like they see it,
and then they're off to the fucking races
where they're going, and they're just running now. And I see so many of the people I love here who are truly like, they are there, they are about to start sprinting because they are so gifted, and really the only gift is like, how do I put this together the right way so I can just start going with it? And they're really there at that point, and it's so inspiring to have friends who are all here and who are all that good.
It's like, for me, like you say, inspiring, like it's got a lot to do with what goes on in your life. But I had a long time where I don't know if I was like depressed or desensitized or something was going on, but it took a lot to inspire me. Maybe like the last, up until like 3 years ago, that like 10-year span, I don't know if it was just my brain getting back to it, but nothing would inspire me. Nothing made me have emotion, and to the point where I was called emotionless by women and like guy friends, you know what I mean? Women I was in friends with or in relationships. And it's just like, feels like the last 3 years, I don't know what the fuck happened. Like if I'm getting older and I'm like getting like tender or something, but I've started to again. Yes. And it's fucking weird, man. It's so fucking crazy to me. Like, why did this start happening again? It could be a lot of different things, but like, what you were saying about like how you see your friends like do good and shit. Like I've watched people, they've been rapping for the longest time, and then they finally sit down and like, I'm gonna stop fucking around with this because I know I'm good, and I'm gonna like step away from my job a little bit and write an album and put it out the right way. And they get it all together, and then they fucking get it out there and people are buying it, and then they play like their record fucking release party. And I've sat in the crowd and looked at these people and watched them kill it when I used to see them do nothing, and it makes me like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like that's what you do, and that's inspiring to me when dudes that rap and bands following them over a couple span of years and then just watching somebody blow up. It makes you feel good. If it's from those arenas that you grew in, you know what I mean?
Right. And it makes you feel so good to not only have friends who are making art, but who are making art that you as a person, if you didn't know them, you'd be a fan of it. You know, you'd be like, wow, I fucking love this. Like,
dude, I'll tell you, last night I went to go see Echo and the Bunnymen, okay, at the Calvin in Northampton. They had a dude open, and he's just a one-man acoustic guitar, and he just looks like an actor that would have been on stage at the Central Perk on Friends. Okay. I'm like, whatever. We just got to get through this before they play, whatever. I didn't think anything of it. I forget. I wish I could fucking shout the dude out. But he had like it was a one word. He was like his own band. And I don't like acoustic guitar. It's never really done it for me. Like I like Tom York and shit like that, and like some other stuff, but it's just not my thing. And me and Meg went, but I also brought one of my coworkers who's like 10 years older than me, but we kind of found out we both liked weird old like British music, and she bought a ticket and she brought her husband. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Right. This is weird now because I got this lady with me. We're about to watch this dude like kill it doing this acoustic thing. So he starts playing, and he's just like, he's just a singer, and he's playing this guitar. But the more I listen to it, the dude's nasty. He's playing this guitar, and his voice is also sick, right? He sounded like a young Bono, okay, but not bad. Yeah, sure. And he had a little bit of a Tom York feel to him, and I was just like, damn, like. I was thinking in my brain, like, damn, this dude's kind of killing it. I don't want anybody to know that I like it. You know what I mean? And like, I look over at Meg, and Meg's kind of like, she's like locked into it. And I'm just like, damn, everybody feels like this too. And like by the third song, I was like, yo, this dude's fucking like, he like, it might not be the kind of music you want to listen to, but you couldn't deny what he was doing in front of you.
Right.
And I was like, this is why this dude is opening for Echo and the Bunnymen, because one of these dudes saw him do that and was like, yo, you want to come on tour?
Right, because everyone who sees you do this will be like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. There's like that, in Hartford, like, I think that way about Chad and Chris, who does Pearl Sugar, but there's also Nadia, who like...
From the coffee shop.
Yeah.
I love that kid.
Yeah, and they are like so. I mean,
Give.
those are just like the first like 3 examples. I could name thousands more, but like of people in this community who like you just hear them go. Like I just like heard Nadia just sing, and it's the most transcendently beautiful. I'm like, if any person on earth heard that happen,
You'd have to like it.
They would be like, what the like they would be looking around like, are we all like you did to your wife, where you're like, is everyone seeing this? Like,
She's into it.
am I losing my mind, or is this amazing? And then everyone else is like crying, and you're like, okay, so I'm right. Okay, so and then you just start crying too because it's that good.
And I felt good for the kid because like he's obviously trying to like make it, and this might be the one thing, like the first big band that's ever asked him to go out. And after every one of his songs, the whole fucking place was clapping. And I know a lot of the people there didn't know who he was because there were like a over 50 crowd, and they're applauding this opener, and I was like, yo, this dude is like, somebody's gonna find out about him.
Right.
I fucking wish I don't want to take time to fucking Google it, but like it was something to be said. I should have, if I was that big of a fan, I should have bought his fucking CD. I'm the asshole.
No, it's all right. Echo and the Bunny, and I'm sure that he's open on most of their shows.
He's gonna be on their shit the whole fucking the whole tour. So yeah, I think that's why I started telling you that story. Or maybe we were just talking about being inspired.
Being inspired.
Because
by
those
people,
are what...
yeah. You see something and you're just like stunned by the... But when they're your friends too, you're like so excited for them personally as like a person who cares about them, but also just like as a fan of their work. If you never knew them in your life, you'd want to go buy it because it's that good.
So this is
you get excited.
This is a feeling that I've been having every once in a while, and I don't know if it's like a mental health symptom or like just feelings coming up,
right.
You know, like that I can't really like control,
right?
Because like I don't feel like I give off like I don't think people look at me and see this soft person, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for years I didn't want people to think that,
right?
You know what I mean? I didn't want anybody fucking near me like that, and I wanted to maintain a fucking like, don't get me wrong, if I get mad and I do something about it, but like I don't think I'm negative, but I don't think I'm like this soft, tender person. And like maybe like the last year, I'll get up. This happened to me last Saturday. I got up before she got up, and I went downstairs and make the coffee. And I had like the Bose pill right there, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll like put some music on." And I started going through like I was trying to find a sample from Ghostface's "Beat the Clock," and it's an Isaac Hayes song, I believe. But I started going through there, and I listen to like the whole song, and dude, you know when you're not about to sob cry, but you know how you're feeling something so hard and you go to like sing along with it, but you can feel you're like because you got that thing going on. Yeah. And it almost feels like how it feels when you are about to start to cry, but it's not crying because you're sad or been hurt. You're just like it's super emotional at the time, you know what I mean? Right. And this has been and it's music that makes it come out of me.
Yes,
and
same. Yes.
And it's very weird, and they're just like these, and they're not like, it's not like it's not like a rap song that was made to this year. It's usually like some weird classic song that I heard when I was younger, or like my mom played, you know what I mean? And I don't know if it's kicking up like old emotion or memories of being a kid or something like that, but I just like, and she'll see me do it, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm just like, "Oh, just whatever," you know.
This makes me so happy. I hope Rose, if you're listening to this podcast, Rose is my girlfriend, and I hope she's listening to this because I'm so sorry to you, Rose, and to anyone who might hear this. I'm sorry to Rose, because I torture her this way too, where when I listen to music, I get like so excited when I love a song. And especially if I'm high, like, and that's been a new experience for me this year. When I started writing this book, I started doing very small amounts of weed, but it's made me feel more connected to other people.
Totally.
And part of that was like when I listen to music, I'm like, I get it now. Like I feel what they're doing to me now. Like in my bones, feel it. And so like, there's a song that Chad has made, Chad Brown Springer. Please buy his record if you can, whoever you are. If you've already heard it, buy it again. But Chad has a song on his record that's called Guava Jelly. That's like the greatest. That song, like, if I could just have it playing in my head all the time, I would pay for that service. But I just make Rose just listen to like that song or a bunch of other songs where it's like, Rose, I have to hear that song where that thing happens, and then I can just like, and it's like,
it's weird, man.
I
like
love it.
I'll go through phases too, like, and I think when I'm super stressed out or when like work is real crazy, and it's sad, but there'll be like months that'll go by that I don't want to listen to music.
Sorry, we're lighting incense here. We're setting a mood.
Yeah, I like, listen, man. Like, so I'll tell you, I told you the story before, but I went to eat with my friends at a fucking restaurant fucking called Tetsu. My bud Jake Blake, my fucking bud Michael, and my bud Chaz. And we went into the where's my lighter? There it is. I went to the bathroom at Tetsu in fucking Midtown or for whatever, and the bathroom smelled like it was my idea of what fucking heaven would smell like. And I fucking DM'd them on Instagram and I said, what kind of incense are you using in the men's bathroom? I was there on this date, And they were fucking sweethearts and they sent me a picture of the shit. So I got it and I'm burning it right now. It's fucking
White plum.
The name of the company is called Kafu Nippon Kodo White Plum.
I don't know when it officially started. It was like January, February, like end of January. But I had sort of written a couple of things along the way to that where I was sort of trying to tell myself what this was going to be. And so the first poem I wrote for that book is actually the last poem that we were trying to write for the first book. Mm-hmm. But I just couldn't figure that poem out yet. And it just took me more time to sort of work my way through it. And that's the poem To Die in Hartford, which was going to be in the first book, Regent. But it just wasn't what I wanted it to be yet. And it took like 2 more years to bake it in this oven of whatever I was trying to do in my mind, to actually figure out like, okay, this is what it needs to be. And so now it's in this book.
So from like, start to finish, you've got yourself a physical copy of a book in 10 months.
Yeah.
That's a good turnaround. Like people do years into books, and this is like, that's inspiring in itself. Right. For anybody that wanted to write a book, it's going to take my whole life. Like he did it in 10 fucking months.
Yeah.
So, like that's awesome. Cause I've always wanted to like, not even like a zine, but I've always wanted to put something out at some point, like tell a story or something,
Yeah.
And, but I never like get the time to start because things keep happening. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's I think the interesting thing about it, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, which is how do you validate artists in the work that they're doing? And so I think about Emily, who published this book. She does Stillcast Publishing, and she put out the first book too. And there was something about her allowing me this space to release that first book that made me think I was the kind of person who could do that. Just made me think, I've put out a book, like I will write another one. And it made it go faster because I was like, oh, I know what I want to do. I have like an idea of how I want to write this book. And it's so much different than the first book, and it's much more melodic. It's almost about syllable counts, and it's doing something fundamentally different than the first book did. But I knew I had released a book before, so I knew I could do it again because Emily had taught me that I could. And so like I think often about that's how she's sort of helping me, is she's helping me start this other press, which is why I want to do that for my friends, which is like I want you to put out your first book so that you can do it, and then everyone will notice that you did it, and you'll get your next one, and you can sort of build the story that you're telling, because so many of my friends are telling such great stories who are poets, who just need one place to go to like show it to people and sell it to their friends and family, sell it online, sell it to their aunts on Facebook and shit, and so if you can just give people that place, like we should try to give it to each other if we can,
Yeah, that's like, I bet you see people all the time and you're like, if that dude only had an outlet to tell his story,
right,
it'd be like worth it.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, especially, I host like a reading where I get to see and meet such amazing people. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you working on a collection? And they're like, yeah, I don't know where I'd get it published. And it's like, oh, I can just help. Like I can learn how to do this and just try to do it for other people too.
I got a couple friends that started their own little presses. One of them lives in LA.
Yeah.
And my friend Wes, he, you ever heard of Cold Cave or, American Nightmare?
Yeah.
Remember
yeah.
Wes, the
Yeah.
Nightmare?
Yeah.
He's got a little press like thing going. He might not do it anymore because Cold Cave got so big, but it was called Heartworm Press, and he put out a bunch of publications that were very cool.
Yeah.
very.
And you
very
can sort of
cool.
make them beautiful and sort of
He had a good-
intentional and like make it doesn't cost that much and you can make it good.
He had a good eye for like design, and like he would get asked to like speak and like read his readings at like crazy places,
Right.
like awesome places.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's good to know like there are everybody's group of friends has that one person
Yeah.
that could like make it happen.
Right.
Remember we were outside before and I started telling you a story, but I told myself to stop because I would have.
Yes.
I didn't want to like not mention it
Yes.
on the actual recording. So I bought this from you. I paid like, some PayPal or Big Cartel, whatever it was. And like, it was like, you could pick it up in Hartford or, you could have it shipped to you. And I was like, whatever. I don't know when they're available or I'm available. I didn't know it was you.
Yeah.
And, Meg said, I was at work and Meg was like, someone just dropped a book in the thing. It's got a little note on the inside for you. I was like, oh, that's my friend Brett. I was like, I would have thought he would like have mailed it. You know what I mean? That's really cool. So I got home and, I have thousands of books in my house.
Right.
And I'm always from a place where like, you got that baseball card, you better keep it mint. And I don't like to fuck with my books. Like I like them to be like pristine and perfect. Some of them I've never even read. I don't like the corners to be fucked up. Like, don't fucking pull a page out, nothing like that. Because I look at it as like a collectible. But then there's those books that are beat up because you read them.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you pull them out to show people. And I definitely have like doubles of books, and I'll do that to one of them, but I'll keep one like fresh.
Right.
But then there's ones I don't have a double of, but I'm gonna beat this book up because the thing is like you keep a second pristine book because at some point you're gonna want to sell it.
Right.
But if this is your book, like you wrote like this little like note to me on the fucking inside, I'm not gonna sell it because I don't want that's mine. Like you wrote that to me. You know, if this book like let's say you fucking blow up and fucking in 10 years someone's looking for your first book and like I could sell it on eBay for a few $100. I'm not fucking do that because it's all banged up because I read every fucking poem in there multiple times. I marked this. I don't write in books. I marked the numbers of the poems that I wanted to touch on with you. And me and Meg were talking about it, and I was like, he wouldn't, if you put out a book and you saw one of your friends doing that, you're not mad. You're probably glad because it shows they're looking at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is mine, and I'll never fucking give it away. And I have other books like that too. It made it mine. It might not fucking sell to somebody because it's not in good condition and it's written in, but it's written in for a reason. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it used to be an OCD thing with me. I would not do that, and I would never fucking hurt a corner or write in a book, and now I'm just not. I don't have that anymore.
Right.
I'm definitely still an OCD person, but when it comes to like this, it's like this is probably going to go into like a bag, like a book bag. It's probably going to end up at my work sometime. I probably will show this to one of my patients that I think might like poetry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like so, I'm just gonna fucking.
Poetry
I love
for
that.
everyone.
So I am going to.
That makes me so happy. I will say though, on an independent level, like as a person who really loves reading and loves having books like that in my life, hearing you say that, and my friend Q recently sent me a photo that he brought it with him when he went to Amsterdam, and it was like bent in half. You could see it had been bent in half
because he was reading it.
Because he had been using it, and he had like folded it up and put it in his pocket
on his flight,
and like it was sitting at a bar in Amsterdam. And my friend Chris from Pearl Sugar, he had told me that he like had brought it on the hike with him, and he pulled it out of this like little duffel bag, and I was like, oh yes, it gets to like live with you. I want it to like really be with you, like, and spend time, because I'm so proud of the poems that are in the book, and I'm like, I really want my friends to like spend time with it, and it's such a meaningful experience to me that they are, or that they would.
I'll tell you what, like if I put out a book and I knew my friend had it and I went to their house and I saw it sitting there untouched, perfect, you're probably gonna think they didn't read it. But if I see that motherfucker with the corner bent or like a bookmark in it, like I know you fucking read it.
Right.
And as a person that did so much to put out a publication, like you're just like, that is that's how you know somebody's reading your fucking book.
Well, it also just excites me because I like the poem so much. Like I really enjoy having my friends. I've had a few friends recently who got theirs in the mail, and they'll text me which ones they like, and I'm like, oh, I love that one too, and I'll like sort of talk to them about what it means to me, and they'll talk to me about what they thought of it, and it gets to be a dialogue. Then it's not just one way; it gets to be for everyone, and that to me, as the person who made it, it makes me feel so happy that I get to have those conversations with my friends, because so much of poetry is a solitary medium. You're just sitting alone and writing, but when your friends really get to see it and they take the time to see it and they really engage with it and talk to you about it, it feels so good, because it's like, oh my god, yes, like I love that, and I love like this part of it, and blah blah blah. And it keeps, I've noticed over the course of this first week of people getting them, that a few of them keep coming back up in weird little ways, where I'll read one to my friend Jeremy and somebody else will text me about how they like that one, and I'm like, wow, that's so weird, I was just thinking about that poem, but I forget that all my friends are about to be able to see them, and it really makes my heart happy.
Yeah. If you work on something for long enough and you get to actually put it all together and give it to somebody, it's almost like, you know, you got a lot of shit in here. You have like a lot of different, how many you got here? Let me see. Let me scroll back. You have 141 poems. Well, let's call it
1 pages.
Yeah. Oh.
So there's like 100 and...
Oh, wait. Yeah, you don't have 141. How many poems are here?
I think it's like 50 or 60.
50,
or so.
60?
Yeah.
Crammed into 141 pages. That's a good amount of poetry.
Yeah.
That's a good amount of poetry. I want you...
It's easier to write poetry in large quantities because you get to break lines. So if you just put one word on every line, you can write the longest books.
And then you start working it out.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I obviously want you to recite some, but I also want to know where you are at and what made you like write that. Because I want
Sure.
tell me the inspiration behind if Gene Wilder makes it to heaven. Where were you at when you got that idea?
Yeah, that poem was about... I was thinking about how there's no heaven, you know, like how heaven's not a real thing, and that's okay. But I do think I wrote that poem on the day that Gene Wilder died, and I think Gene Wilder's a really fascinating person, because he was very creative and, I mean, truly tortured, like a very sad man for most of his life, who was beloved and very well known for being so funny, and being this, you know, Willy Wonka character, and, you know, being this guy who was in Blazing Saddles, and everyone's like, oh, he's such a, you know, a legend of comedy. But truly in his heart, he lived a very sad life, because when he was not young, but when he was relatively young, Gilda Radner died. And he loved her. He actually loved her. And he would so often talk about it in interviews how much different his life had been after he lost something that big. And so when he died, I don't think heaven is real, but I think he knew that too. And I think he knew that he had it, you know, like that it had existed once in his life at least. And he hadn't been paying attention because he didn't know that he needed to be. But if he had been, it would have been breakfast in the kitchen, and it's Sunday, and it's the perfect light, and your favorite song's playing, and the person you love is there, and there's coffee, and you love them, and you say so, and that's it, and that's heaven.
That's one of the ones that got me. Remember I was telling you about the weird feeling I was when I got the Isaac Hayes song,
right? Like
Meg's like making dinner, and I like usually I'll have those moments alone,
right?
But like she's like making dinner, like the fucking dog is like sitting there, and I'm still like getting to that point,
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's powerful. That's very powerful. I think actually no, this isn't the one with the dark line that I loved. Do you want to read it?
Gene Wilder?
Yeah,
sure.
Do you
I know most of the words to that one.
I was gonna say, like, how many of these do you know memorized in your head?
A lot of them
Probably
I did,
the earlier ones because you've sat with them more.
Yeah, and some of them I just think about more, and a lot of the ones I just finished.
You probably like.
I think
more
I know
than
all
others.
the words to that one.
Here.
Yeah, but
We don't want you.
Yeah, it's not a quiz. Yeah. So this song is. This poem.
This one's called.
This poem is about being present. It's about like right now in your life, whoever you are, if you're actually hearing this, there's a moment that will happen to you in the next week that will actually be what heaven is. And if you pay attention, you will see that. And this is a poem about it. It's called If Gene Wilder Makes It to Heaven. Gene, my boy, it's your turn. Or if we're each to take our own paths, we might find ourselves in valleys where the flowers smell like chocolate. Gene, I hear they say it's over. Say we lose the things we love most, but maybe God has Gilda laying on a sofa in your old home, and she will look up from a paper to see you standing in the doorway, and you will say, oh love, I've missed you. She'll scrunch her nose the way she used to. Please find her hair all tied in bangles, both your faces bright and ageless, your favorite record always playing, her coffee just the way she takes it. Yeah. Now,
you said before, like, you described it as that Saturday morning or Sunday morning. It's the more this is what I'm thinking. I'm like, it's quiet out, I'm in a good mood.
Yeah.
It's Saturday, I don't got shit to do, my wife is there.
Yeah.
The dog's there. It's not too hot or too cold in my house. I just am not pissed off about anything. And I get the vibe of, like, you know, when shit is all good and you kind of look over at your lover and you're like, that's why.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's the kind of
That's like
vibe.
what this whole book is about,
That's
kind of.
the vibe I get from that.
Right, where it's like to be truly loved in a way that makes you feel safe. Is the thing I just didn't understand before, and I do understand
Me
it now.
neither.
Right, and I understand it now. And in many respects, this book is an attempt to articulate what it feels like to feel love like that. And some part of it is that poem, which is like about the idea that I am fully aware in every single moment that it's happening, that every time I get to see the person I love, Rose, that's heaven, that truly is. If I am paying attention, I can see. It makes it easier to be patient, because whenever there's like a little sort of bullshit ticky-tack like argument over something that truly doesn't matter, I see the bigger clarity of what she means to me, which is, oh, I just love you, so it's okay. Like, this is my fault. It must be, like, you know, like, it's all right. Like, let's just be like, I love you. And it's like, oh yeah, like, sorry, we love each other. Like, we, you know, like that, just sort of being more patient with each other and not letting little things just get in the way, and not letting selfishness and all that bullshit. Like, how do you just be present and just let people assume people are starting from a place of loving you back and not feeling anything else? And so, like, there's no fear, there's no, like, you know, you're not worried about anything. It just feels like it's all over you. It's like it's surrounding you.
I got married like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so I proposed to Meg last November. And don't get me wrong, like, in all my relationships, like, I've had some bad fights, bad arguments, bad shit said, you know, like, and like, as I got older, I number one, they stress me out. It's not like it's not like you want to do that shit, but two people in conflict, that's what happens. And like, over the years, you learn from that, and you know you don't need that in your life, and you do your best to kind of like be better and like hope they do the same thing, and then you'll get to that point. Right. But like, me and Meg have had our fair share of fucking like arguments. But like, you get to a point where, you know, like, that what we're arguing about doesn't give a fuck. So why would we like? Why would we like? It doesn't matter.
Right. And it's like, you get to the point where you love someone enough that you like look at them and you're just like, I love you. I'm sorry. Like, what are we doing? I'm sorry. Like, and they're like, yeah, me too. Sorry, I don't know why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And you can just like, it just can evaporate because you've built up enough trust over time to be like, I know we're both starting from a place where we respect each other, so like something must have gone wrong, and we'll figure it out. But like people like, let's hug it out.
Like even as like a therapist and you know, working in the counseling profession, the last few years they're pushing like this whole mindfulness. Like it's always been there, but like the last 5 years it's like been a thing, and like now it's like a required class if you're going to do any sort of like psych, mental health, counseling degree.
Right.
And I hated my mindfulness class because it was too zen for me. You know what I mean?
At the time, right? Like,
This is like I've had a bunch of them, but like I just graduated in December, and like even my undergrad, and then definitely in like my master's program, they push it hard.
Right.
And then when I first started like to have to do like papers and stuff on, I was like, it was a chore.
Right.
But now that I know that, knowing I'm going into an argument with her and knowing that I don't want it to end up somewhere bad, that's when I use it. That's what being mindful is.
Right.
When
Paying
you
attention.
stop
Yeah.
and you just are there for yourself, with yourself, and you're like, it's almost like if you fucking pulled your brain out of your head, stopped your body, hit pause, and put your brain over here, and it's looking at what you're doing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's analyzing the situation. It's like, okay, you know yourself, you know you love this person.
Yeah.
You know her, you know she loves you.
Yep.
So you know everyone here's starting from a place of that. So just go in and be like, hey.
And then you're fucking, you put
and
your
then
brain
go back
back
in
in
and
your
it's like,
head.
okay, I realize we're all here to love each other.
Sorry. Like, and that's
Like
the
I'm not.
thing.
No one's lying to each other. No one's doing bad things. It's all just respect.
And that's the thing. Like I never want, like when you're younger, saying sorry and apologizing is so much harder.
Right.
And like
Right.
stopping and thinking like this isn't worth it is
Right.
so, it's like, it's easier now. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
back in the day, you want to have control. You want the power. Even if it's not a loving relationship, if it's like some sort of interactment, like out in the fucking world, like, but nowadays it's just like, is it worth it? Is it gonna like hinder
Right.
me?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I think a lot more. Now, especially like ever since we were engaged, and like now that we're married, like that shit's real.
Yeah.
So you can't do some dumb shit to
Right.
fuck it up because
Right.
you just did all this work to get there.
Right.
Why the fuck am I gonna fuck it up? So every time we go into an argument, and her too, like she does the same thing. Like she'll stop and be like, "We're being fucking stupid." Like, you know, like I'm
Right.
sorry, but before you go on days. And that's exhausting. Like when someone's mad at you and you live in a house with them, no one wants that shit. You know what I mean? It's fucking, I don't know.
And I was, like some part of this book was about trying to tell Rose that. I mean, I tried to tell her that in the moment because I think it's good to be honest. And I mean, have hard conversations, have good conversations, tell people you love them. But some part of the book too is like, how do you, like the last poem in that book is like I think the closest thing, actually the poem that one of the poems you mentioned too, which is called Stoned, watching I Heart Huckabees in bed with you.
I loved it.
Which is similar to me to the last one in the book, which is called What Rose Said, which is just a poem which is like 10 lines long, which is about a text she sent me that made me feel really good. And so I wrote a very, very short poem. That's the last poem in the book. About what it just feels like to have someone else see you, like how to not feel like you're pretending anything at all. You're just, someone sees you and you're like, you're cool with this, and they're amazing, and they're like, yeah, I'm cool with it. And it's like, oh, I can just be relaxed and be nice. Like, it just feels so good.
So here's a question for you. So you read that poem in a certain like mannerism at a certain level. It sounded like you, but you definitely had like, you almost went into a different character. Do you do that? Is that like the gear for every single poem you write, or do you kind of change it up with different moods?
Most of them, I don't know, they just all sound some way to me. I think the girl
I know
moved
what
to-
you mean. As like a dude
Yeah.
that writes lyrics, like
Yeah.
you're not just doing it the same all the time.
Right.
Like you're getting different
But they all have a
emotions.
sound to me that I think the girl that I moved to Connecticut with, she told me once when we were on a train that she thought I read poetry like FDR, which I think is quite true. And we laughed about it, and I was pretended to be offended. I was like, how dare you? But, but of course I was not offended at all, because I was like, that's kind of a funny way to say it. But I think that's true, that like, I hear them the way that I'm saying them. Like that's what they sound like in my brain. Just the structure of the way they're supposed to go.
Did she mean like a presidential speech? Like
I think she just meant like it sounded like some weird like 1930s like radio broadcast of like chaos in Europe. The armies are marching on, and it's like
it's like
the armies of sadness are marching in these.
It
poems.
does definitely like it's not official, but like it gets your attention.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think the person who edited this book, my friend Hanif, he as a performer is so phenomenal that it truly like made me think about what do these poems sound like, which I already used to think about too. Like they've always sounded this way, but I thought more proactively about what they sound like as I wrote them. I would say them to myself as I was writing them to hear them. And that's a different process. I didn't do that. I'd never done that before. I wrote this book very differently in that respect. Just by sort of speaking them to myself to sort of feel how they moved and what was working and what wasn't. And part of that was inspired by music. Part of that was inspired by so many things, but it was largely inspired by Hanif.
Will you read the Huckabee one?
Yeah.
I like that one. Oh, I got it open to it.
Yeah.
Number 2.
This is a poem about. This was a poem inspired by a much better poem by Frank O'Hara called "Having a Coke with You," which is one of the most beautiful poems ever written, and is the poem that I named this press after, which is why. And it's about just sitting down and having a can of soda with the person you love is better than every museum on earth. And I really love that poem. And I got high with my girlfriend, and we watched a movie together. And then I wrote a poem, and this is that poem. And it's called "Stoned Watching I Heart Huckabees in Bed with You."
Lay it on me.
And he said, "Coincidence, like some crime had been committed, and you smiled at me and passed the gummy bears. And how am I not myself? How am I not myself? How am I not myself?" You cried and squeezed my wrist. And his wife left when he could not stop considering the mortal pain and utter chaos of existence. And you laughed at the thought, and I laughed too, and I loved you so goddamn much for always laughing at the same parts I want to laugh at. And I thought, what love is coincidence, is you here and me too, in the whole of human existence, in all matter, in all death, in all war, in all birth, in all over us as water is, and all of time and space conspired to put you right here in this bed next to me laughing. And I'm laughing. And how am I not myself? And all of mankind, gods and devils all around us, over and over, as water is, how am I not myself, has laid some finger upon the glory of the fortune that finds me here, eating gummy bears from the crevices. How am I not myself between your fingers?
You were definitely high. I love it.
Yeah, there's like multiple overlapping like narratives in there where like it goes into, yeah.
Dude, I love it. That was probably the last one I read before I put the book down, before you came over. Like, I'll tell you right now, if I found a record that was you reciting poetry just with no music or no background noise, just you doing it in that voice, if I was just a dude that didn't know you and I found that record, right, I would be using that record to like pull a sample for the beginning sample of like a rap song. Like you get some fucking prolific, really like dark like reciting of some poetry, and then I would just fade it out.
Be weird. That'd be
and then the beat just comes in. You know what I mean? Like it's like sounds like you're. It sounds like, I don't know, just like a record that. What do they do? What am I trying to say? Like
it reminds me, what you're saying to me reminds me of a song I always used to love for a reason I don't quite understand, but I'm unabashed in my love of it, which is a song by a band called Stars. and the first line of it is sort of like a quote of like, it's some guy from an old movie, but it kind of sounds like whatever the fuck I sound like. But it's like some guy going, "When there's nothing left to burn, you have to set yourself on fire."
And then burn.
And then
like
it's just
the,
like
the fucking blast beats come in. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the interlude.
On that song, it's like then like piano starts playing, and it's like, ooh, jazzy.
Dude, you could insert those in front of any rap song or any hardcore song, and it works. You know what I mean? Everybody there was a Biohazard song. I don't know what the fuck song it is, but like, I think it's fucking Dolph Lundgren from a movie, and he's talking about, "Can you hear me, God?" or something like that. Like, it's just like one of those things. It's like one of the. It's like you remember that sample more than you do the song.
Right.
Like, that stands out in your mind for years.
There's what my friends were in high school in a band called Safier. Let me first of all give a shout out to Josh Sparks. Or no, Josh Sparks, you do not get blamed for this. Josh Parks does. Tim, Brian Vodke, Matt Schmitz, and Andrew, who were in Safier, who had a song where on the record, the opening of it was the opening to Montel Jordan's "This Is How We Do It." So it was like, "This is how we do it."
Boom. I would do it, yeah.
And it was like amazing. And I will never remember what the song itself was that they did that with. I'll just remember that opening riff of the guitar coming in after "This Is How We Do It." So shout out to Safier in 2018.
That's like you know the song and you might sing along, but that's the thing. Like, if you hear somebody play it in their car, you're like, "Oh shit, this is the song." This is like, because you know that sample.
Right.
What you were talking about, your connection to you knew the guys in Modern Life as War.
Yeah, they used to play at a venue in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and so there was a weird garage that would just have little punk shows, and those guys were sort of from the area, and they would always, some of them I think lived there at some point, and they were just sort of around, and they would play really wonderful shows in that garage. And the garage was so beautiful because it was like just a bunch of weird music happening, and a place for people just to see beautiful things that was accidentally in like my hometown. And it was such a wonderful thing to get to grow up near, to see really weird and good art so close to home.
When did they stop doing music? They're like,
I don't know. I think they maybe put out a record again recently.
Really?
Maybe at some point in the last few years. Yeah,
I gotta check. Yeah, they were awesome. They had a really good they had like a good response every time they came to Connecticut. Kids, like, I think hardcore kids all over liked them. You know what I mean? Like, they were a solid band.
Yeah,
they were a solid band.
One of the greats.
So
the greats.
I gotta find all right, if I had to, since I haven't read the whole book, for what I've read right now, I will tell you that my favorite poem out of the whole book is Awake. That one.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Because that shit hit me in a place, and I think anybody, even if they didn't hear you saying it, just reading it would be like, it's not that you've been in that situation, but you've all been to Awake, and you know the vibe that goes on there. And that shit is like, it was almost painful because it's real. You know what I mean? That's my favorite.
Yeah, I love that poem. Yeah,
I just like fucking.
It's a very sad poem. I won't.
It's very sad.
Into like what it's about, but it's.
Did you write that due to like something that had happened, or did you just have
somebody for a friend? Yeah.
Okay. You want to read it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to.
I keep like looking on the right page, looking for that like death metal lyric. I know it's in there somewhere. If you hear me say
one, you're welcome, and you can just bark it at me. This poem's called Awake. And in this one, our hero arrives after the battle is over. Our heroine lifted on high upon needles so tender, and in this room some weary mob cries out for a savior, to bring middle school scripture for our body's conscription to sound lovely a whisper. And her song, it keeps playing fleshly instruments all dressed in light. And last night she saw teenage girls taking funeral selfies. And the pastor said Jesus is freedom from all earthly pain. And in this room, God shows you he loves you by burying children. And no kiss to be seen that can haunt any dream, like a mother with her lips pressed to wood. And this one will sound just like you remember. The women you love will be crying when you find them inside. And in this one, our hero lays down where she is forgiven. As a father smokes cigarettes and loosens his tiny nose, he knows. Some hard things taste like love. No goddess can save us quite how we hoped they could. And in this one, a mother will stand beside her own daughter's coffin. A stranger kisses her cheek, a mouth unable to sleep or to speak, or to dream, or to sing her goodnight.
So that, when I was reading it, so you look at a painting and you get a feel for what you see. You listen to a song, you get a feel. You know what the song is. It probably sounds the same thing to everybody. Mm-hmm. But when you hear a poem that's kind of like a description of something going on, everybody's going to make their own story. Everybody's going to make their own picture in their mind, mm-hmm. what that looks like. And that, to me, I was probably envisioning any of the fucking million wakes I've ever been to. Mm-hmm. And just like, obviously someone's kid died. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things like, you're never supposed to bury your children. They're supposed to bury you. But the way that you say it just embodies, like, I know this family is bound to fall apart because this is where it started. A child died, and now that there's going to be all kind of fucking chaos in the family, and that's like this family is like done. Like the mom kissing the fucking wood, kissing the outside of the coffin. It's such a sad poem, but it's such a real poem. And that's like imagine having to feel that pain, like burying your kid.
Yeah,
like this probably be about as close as you can get, unless it happened to you. Like getting a real vision in your mind about it.
Yeah, and the person I think of that in my heart that poem is about is a woman who's so strong that I think about. I mean, I think, sort of what we were talking about earlier with art, but like how can other people's strength inspire you? And so there's something about the person who that poem's about that, I mean, the idea that you can come back from something that hurts that much, I can't even imagine. Mm-hmm. And like, what do I let myself get away with where I like say like, oh, it's too hard to do this, and it's like, it's not too fucking hard. Like,
yep. I see stuff like that. That's how you get reminded. Like,
right. It's like I am inspired by the strength
I'm fucking
of what
lucky.
she has done. Like, mm-hmm. Truly. And so I think about how do we hold ourselves to a higher like to the standard that other people are setting for themselves, where it's like they are so strong and like beautiful and graceful, and still they're capable of empathy, and they still listen to people, and they're still present for others, and they haven't given up yet. Like, how do I keep fighting harder to be better every day? Like, don't give up yet. Mm-hmm.
Like, if that happened to that person and they can still function on that level, I have no fucking reason to complain about anything.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, yeah. And it's like, and there's other things in this life that are hard, and I know we all share different things all the time, and it's like again, it's cyclical. You have your thing, and then your thing fades a little bit more. And some people have things that never fade, and some mm-hmm. people have things that they have no control over. And so many people are, how do you be present in what other people are struggling with and have empathy for them for that? Like, how do you pay attention a little bit more and see what people are doing that is bigger, that's stronger than maybe they see, and like, how do you elevate mm-hmm. them? How do you try to help them see what you see, which is like such beauty?
I also get the vibe in that poem. It brings up my personal feelings of religion. Mm-hmm. And my personal views on religion is, if there was never any religion from the start of man, everything would probably be a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the biggest money maker in the history of the world. I think I forget where I heard this. It was a podcast, or it was like some sort of like research done, or it was just like a fucking, could have been a pie graph somewhere, but I read something, and it's estimated per year, like the revenue that all religion takes in on the globe, whether it's Catholicism, Christianity, Episcopalian, fucking Hindu, any religion where people go to a church and then there's the money made through it, $300 trillion a year. And the story was about like nothing should have that sort of power and that sort of like pull, you know what I mean? Nothing should have, no one thing should have that. And for me to know that, I believe, like, this is my, I don't even care, like, I don't think people are offended anymore when people tell like their anti-religious views, but like I'm from a place, I was a fucking altar boy. I was an acolyte. My parents were super religious growing up, and then they kind of like faded, but like that's got nothing to do with how like my reasoning of reality, you know what I mean? Like, you know what's real, you know what I mean? And I just don't, I mean, that's not real to me.
What I always told when I was in the Peace Corps, they often would ask what my religion was, and I always told them I just didn't have one, and they were like, well, and they would always ask like,
you're such a nice person, you must be
religious.
religious.
You have to be religious somehow. And I was like, I don't know, I just think like, just in my own heart, I think it's very important that we're decent to each other, and that I grew up in a way that it made me seem important that we were supposed to like help each other out. Like, it's not always easy for anybody, and like it's not that hard to give a little bit of yourself to try to make somebody else's day a little better. You know, how do you be more loving and forgiving, and how do you be more present? How do you lift people up? How do you call them when you know they're having a bad day? Like, how do you do better? And it's like, how do you, and to me that never, I'm so hopeful and joyful when people do find that in religion. Like, I don't personally, but I find that from a different, it just seems internal. Like, it just feels like the thing that generates my day, and so I want to keep trying to do better to try to help as many people as I can.
You could be a good person,
right? And you just don't need that. I don't personally need that, but if some people do, and that's all they want out of it. But the problem, especially where I grew up in the Midwest, like there's all these sort of folks who more broadly used their religions as a tool of, you know, discrimination. So to say like, this is why we don't like other people, and this is why we hate gay people, this is why we hate whomever. And so to me, that always seemed grotesque, because it's like, this is supposed to be about loving everyone, I thought. And if y'all want to love everyone, I think you're supposed to just do that then. Like, this doesn't seem like love. I don't know.
It's always just been such a sham to me. But like, the older I get and the more like I get into learning about that stuff, you know, I don't want this to take like a fucking Ancient Aliens turn, you know what I mean? But like, there's a lot of different ways anybody could have gone about it. But if you're gonna tell me that, you know, there was this guy named Jesus Christ, and he fucking is the person that fucking, you know, God made him, and here's the world, and it's all here because this person made us. It definitely, like, and we have to like pray to you every day, and you have to remain in that mindset till you die. And maybe when you die, if you are good, you're gonna go to this nice place. Even as a child, like, I was like, you know, I was there doing the job. Like, I never believed anything unless I could see it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And for some people, I mean, I always try to have like I try to always think about the way in which I, on a personal level, can be more, you know, just always try to accept as much as I can. Like, the only rule I've ever had for religion is like, if your religion is one that discriminates against people, like, then that means that your religion's wrong, and like, that's bad. Like, and like, that's what I've always really struggled with. I don't really mind if people believe things. I think I just mostly struggle when those beliefs correlate to things that truly are hurting people. So if you're truly hurting people, then that's a moral crime. Like, it's an inhumane thing to do, to hurt people. And so I don't often think about it in terms of, because there's certainly tons of shit I believe that's complete horseshit. You know what I mean? Like, there's like things that I probably grew up like for example, recently there was a New York Times magazine article about evolution, and it was about how basically everything we've ever understood about modern evolution is if completely wrong, because there's been a third thing happening all along that somebody found out in like 1974 and has been doing his research, and he finally got it published, and it's about this sort of like horizontal gene transfer that's been happening throughout all of recorded time, where you'll just notice little pieces of, you know, DNA from a species that doesn't belong to the species that you're studying, but it got there somehow, and we don't understand how that's happening. We have no idea, but some guy just noticed it was. And it's an amazing article, but I was reading it and I was like, oh fuck, man. I was like, there's still so much that like I'm just totally wrong about probably everything. And so like I always, when people talk to me, I'm always like, I'm sure I'm wrong, but my only goal for anyone when they're coming at me in any conversation is like, how are we going to talk about loving and supporting people and workers and love, and like how do you talk about lifting people? Like, I mean, even like the work that I do, like it's like, how do you talk about lifting up people? How do you talk about decent wages? And like, how do you talk about respecting children, like giving them schools that are castles? Like, why are we setting such a low standard? Why don't we talk about like building, like, why does it, you know, like things like that? Like why aren't we talking about what brings us together? Like everything else seems so hurtful, you know?
It's just like, if you want to like, the thing is, like, I don't shit on religion.
You're right.
Because I know that there's people like that I love that, you know, like older people, like your parents, or if you got like a grandmother that's religious, you're not going to go and like shit on it because you love her. You know what I mean?
Plus, I'm almost envious. I wish I believed that there was a good thing that came.
Yeah.
You know, like that's such a gift in some respects. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know, like somebody, like, there's all these people that are like super militant about it. God free. Like, you don't even have to think about it. Like, who you're trying to convince. Like,
it's like when people like ask me, I don't eat meat, and I'm like,
it's not even I just
don't even think about it. Like, I just don't. It doesn't come up.
Yeah.
And it's like, but when sometimes they're like, oh my God, how do you go without, or like, I don't drink alcohol, and they're like, oh my God, how do you not do it? I'm like, I don't know. Like, you don't
the same way I don't drink bleach.
Right. Yeah. Like, you don't eat shark every day. And if I came up to you and be like, dear God, how are you not eating shark every single day? They're like, it just doesn't come up in my life. I don't think about it. It's not, and like, it's like, so it's just not in my life. I hope everyone is, whatever is in their life is there from a place of respect, you know?
If you are religious and you're using that, and you are this good person,
right,
and you can do that for your whole life until you die, I'm not mad at you.
Do your thing.
But the minute you start wars over it, or you exploit others, or like some bad shit goes down, don't tell me that this book that was handed down, like this story that is basically all the books of all the religions are kind of like the same thing. Don't tell me that came from a place of malice, even if it was. You're like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like there's, and the fact that it's like 2018 and there's like a million religions, it's just like, all right, even if one of them was the real story, like all these other people are being fucking duped. Like, so why would I even buy into thinking that any of them were? Now, I'll tell you right now.
My religion, I will say, quite frankly, is ice cream.
You love ice cream.
Your boy is an ice cream religionado. I should coin that word.
Religion. It's like regalia.
But quite frankly, it is a religious experience.
Like, now that you say that, I'm trying to think of something like, what would my religion be? What would be the closest thing that I would die for? You know what I mean? It's weird. It's like the word religion is just it's just like like you said, if it's not in your life, you don't think about it.
Right.
I have people.
But I do think, I mean, like some part of this book is like. It's about the idea of like, how do you describe holy things? Like, how do you, there's a poem that I wrote recently that's not in this book, but will be in whatever the next thing is. But it's called Holy Day. And it's about like a day that is unique in my life and in the life of a person I love, where we both lost someone on the same day. And so the idea of this poem is like, this is a holy day. Like, and how do you talk about like, the variety of things that holy means? How do you talk about like the holiness of grief and regret, and how do you talk about the holiness of love and like memory, and how you feel so good to know that you had known them at all? And how do you talk about like how as time passes your feeling changes, and that is holy, how this is all holy. Like if you pay attention to the way grief moves in your life, it can be like a really beautiful experience. It's not that grief is religion, but it's that, you know, grief is instructive. It teaches you how to appreciate other shit, and it teaches you how to like really know when you've seen the darkness and be like, well, this isn't that, so like I should probably get over this, you know, like where like I think some people have religion for that same reason, which is to say when things get really scary and confusing, it feels good to just know that something is governing it all. And I do think grief is like that, which is to say that when you are when you're feeling sad, when I feel sad now, I think back to 5 years ago, whenever it was, when I felt like actual, and you know what I'm talking about, but like actual sadness, like completely alone in every meaningful way. And I know it doesn't feel like that now most days. So I'm like, we're good. We're trying. Like we're getting better. We're fighting harder. It's harder.
I have like a weird brain, and sometimes it likes to measure things. And when you were saying that, I was just thinking about, imagine a person that never knew anyone that died, didn't have like death around them. Somehow this happened, and the person never knew anybody that died. I don't know what world he'd be living in, but just imagine someone never experiencing grief. Now you have another person, went to a few wakes a year, people super close to him, maybe relatives, maybe parents and kids, and has experienced a lot of death and a lot of grief. And you just start those people at 1, boom, all the way to 40. What are the differences in those people? What have the lack of that situation or the oversaturation of that situation has done to the human mind?
Right.
Are you stronger? Are you sadder? Are you beat down? But that person that's never experienced it, are you naive?
Right. Are you appreciating things?
Do you even know how to, like, do you even know what a fucking feeling is?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think that molds people.
Yeah.
Children too. People our age, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just,
and it's
I'd
really
like
hard.
to see.
It's hard to think about, you know, the part of the book was written from this perspective of how does grief, as grief starts to fade from your own life, you do start to see it. You realize that it doesn't go away. It's just sort of like an echo somewhere, and it doesn't stop really. But you figure it out, and you just sort of have it with you, and it doesn't hurt that way anymore. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. And then, but your friends, as you like, as they start to feel similar griefs, you start to say, like, it's almost like you have a new muscle, and so you get to be strong in a way that was you're learning from past experience. And so, like, just being quiet, shutting the fuck up sometimes, and just sitting down and just sitting with somebody when they're having a bad day, like when you know what they've gone through, and just sitting with them, and saying like, hey, I got you. Like, if you want to be silly, we can be silly. If you want to cry, we can cry. If you just want us to shut the fuck up, or we can put music on or watch a show, or like whatever you need. Like, I'm just, or you can be alone. Like, it's up to you. Like, I'm exactly what you need, whatever you need that. That's such an important thing to learn from grief, which I feel truly like I did learn, which was when the people I love started losing the things that mattered to them. I remembered what had felt good to me, and it was like, oh, it was Sean, my best friend, who was just there for me in whatever way I needed him to be. Just showed up and was just silly when I wanted silly, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I don't know, I think part of this book is talking about grief as an act of love. Like, how do you learn from and grow in the body of grief? Like,
now that you say that, it's like, it's such a hard thing when someone dies, and it's like the feeling of grief is such like a hardcore thing to have happen to your brain. But when you experience it with others, like, you know, a bunch of siblings and their father died, or a bunch of friends and somebody they all looked up to died, those people are all being brought together a little bit more because that happened. You know what I mean? And it's a weird thing, because that's the worst fucking thing that could happen, but people coming together for that is probably one of the more better things that can happen in the terms of people interacting and getting along with each other.
Right.
It's
which also
strange.
almost goes back, I think, to why artist communities can become such strong places of, you know, social and emotional support, because so often people who are there are people who are there for a specific reason. They want to tell the story of an internal monologue, whether that monologue is informed by grief. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But everyone has sort of a common mission of being there to tell their story and hear other people's stories and be present the way they'd want other people to be present in their own work. And sort of like that echo of support is such a warmth, you know, like that is a really beautiful thing that I think is true of both friendships, but also of like romantic partnerships, where you have a romantic partnership where you can truly learn from each other and learn how to grow together and support each other on journeys that sometimes are hard.
Yeah. And it's strange for people that have never had that and then they jump into it.
Yeah.
You know, like being married. If you would have told me 5 years that I'd be married, even 4 years ago, like I would be like, to who? Why? No one likes me, and I don't like anybody in that much to want to do that.
Right.
And like, I don't know. It's an accountability thing too.
Yeah.
I'm in this thing now, and you just got to act a little bit better on all levels.
Right.
Like the basic idea of it is like you've entered into this agreement to not be a shitbag to the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Challenge yourself. God damn it.
Marriage is a total challenge.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've been thinking about this lately. It's like, you might be able to do a lot of things, but show me you marry someone, or even not even, it doesn't even have to be that. It could be a commitment to the person you're with. You don't have to get married, but show me you do that shit and you love it and you mean it and you don't fuck up and you go every day because you don't want to fuck up and you want to keep that person happy. I don't give a fuck if you could do this or that in your life. I want to see you do that, because that's a fucking...
And I was thinking, it's so funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about, I won't mention either of their names, but there's this person who I used to know at work who started working with me in a different way at this other job, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, her and her boyfriend are two people who I deeply love and like truly cherish as people. But the way they love each other, like the way they support each other and the way they show up for each other every day, like in sort of small ways where it's like, oh, why is this person here at 6 a.m. when we're all out here being tortured because this is our job, and they're just here to like hold clipboards and be nice. And it's like, oh, you're showing up for people, like you're doing the work, you're loving someone and you're showing them like you love them so much that this isn't even, you're not doing this to like get credit, you just actually care so much that you're just here because this person is part of you too, you know? Like that's such a beautiful thing. That is the type of love to me that inspires me, that says like, why aren't you trying harder? Like when they ask you to, like, because I often sometimes
you can't hide from it. Like, you know what you're doing. It's like you could fool the rest of the world into knowing that you might have this perfect relationship, and you might not have it, but you know, it's a strange thing that I never thought I'd give so much thought to.
Right. And it's so nice to be with somebody who, when you love them, just feels, I don't know, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but like it just feels like actual safety. Like it just feels like you are in a place where you are not worried about any of the petty shit. You remember being worried about it with other people. You're like, even in ways that you told yourself you weren't, but you still somehow subconsciously were, and you knew it, like inside your own fucking heart.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of those you can't look at yourself in the mirror.
Like, when anyone asks, you're like, I don't give a fuck about that shit. And they're like, wow, he's okay. But in your heart, you're like, I really do, but I don't know how to get over this. But it's nice to feel a love where you're just like, I just actually am not, like, I would tell you if I was, like, you know, like, I just don't know. Like, we just can respect, like, we can just vibe together. It's like, well, a partnership, truly, like in every meaningful sense. Yeah. Like, that's such a really beautiful addition to someone's life. And I think about some part of this book as being an act of, like, respect to that. Like, how do you start telling the story of that in a way that's not only about that, because that is not the governing force of your life, but it is the governing direction of your life, is that, like, for sure. And so it's not, so you write about other things along the way, but like the book is dedicated to Rose. Like this is a book I wrote about that I could not have written without Rose. Like Rose is needed. I needed her. Like she's inspires me to try to harder.
See, when I was reading it, I saw like for Rose, and I know everybody when they write a book, they always dedicate it to somebody. And like now I know why you wrote it, just because of this conversation we've been been having. I know why you dedicated it to her.
Yeah,
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's people. It's envious. Like if you a couple years ago, like I wouldn't even notice a couple that was a good model that did things right for each other. I didn't even give a shit about that. And now, like, you know, everybody's got at least a couple of them in their life where it's just like, it's not that you want to copy or be like that person, but you just want to be in that model.
Yeah,
what they're doing.
Do a good job and respect the person you're with, and like, because you always notice when people do it for you, when they do like a small act of decency for you, and it feels 1,000 times better than the amount of effort it took. And it's like, how could I do that for the person I'm always with? Like where it's like, you know,
like you didn't get with them and want to spend the rest of your life with them so you could do like shitbag things. It's
right?
Like,
yeah,
if you wanted to be like that, you would just stay like that, or not get married, be single. You know what I mean? It's like,
shit, man, love is great. I wrote a book about it. Quite frankly, I wrote a book about how great love is. It's called Blackbird 4PM. And that was our pitch.
Yeah.
That's our pitch right there.
we just gave a good 25-minute segment on love.
Shout to White Plums.
Yeah.
Shout to Blackbird 4PM. Shout to love.
It's the fucking white plum in the air that's fucking getting
plums.
We're going deep.
Plums.
I want you to do one more.
Sure.
Before we wrap this up.
Sure. I'd be happy to.
And I think it's like, I know like every album has like the filler, but then they have that one song that like kind of like is the reason everybody knows the album. And for me, I think it's the one about Hartford.
Oh yeah.
Because like, and you also drop a couple little Easter eggs in there that if you weren't from Hartford, you wouldn't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? There's a couple words in there that if you're from here, you know. I thought that was really cool, man.
I would love to read it.
Let's have you read that one. I gotta see what number it is. You probably know better than me. As I was going down the line, I just was like, gotta talk about that one.
Yeah, man. It's a great poem.
Page 67.
I love it.
I'm a dumbass. I just opened to the contents page, not the actual page where the fucking
You
poem
told me
is.
where to go, though. You've directed me now. Yeah, this one's a little bit longer, so I apologize.
This is the grand finale.
Yeah. Oh,
Fuck
yeah.
it.
That's right.
Yeah,
You're right.
fuck it.
Thanks for having me. I love you.
You're welcome.
This poem's called
Love you too.
This is a love poem to a city. And this poem's called To Die in Hartford. To die in Hartford is to live in pretty whiskey on Pete's vacant balcony in a sunshine that is clean. To die as arches ring you through in candlelight, the women you love always running 15 minutes late and you don't mind. A man you have never been, a mercy you will never earn, and the laundromat never closes, and the bodega always carries your cigarette, and her last dress is still wrinkled on the stoop. To die in Hartford is to fall in love and really mean it. Answers to the question time in the body collected to need touch so desperately you can taste it on your lips come morning sage of the little river safe. In tender kisses it seems the city knows we are not meant to be alone. Someday sound, for someday sound, for the sake of sound will be enough. Our bodies 10 years older, our couch a decade softer. From the kitchen, you tell me how your day was. Voice echoing down corridors, days, echoing days before, a larger truth unrealized. Some harder fruit, near clementines, the book that is somehow always in your hand. Let me be smoke break conversations until I am grocery aisle smiles. My love, I swear back then I was not quite myself. A list of all your favorite novels, a quiet terror, a mercy constant, your slender cheeks warmed by the summer, the face you make when you are angry, I still remember. Am I still tender? Known as early morning splendor, some childhood memory that blends in with your dreams. The man I claim to someday be when I grow up. The one to make you Sunday breakfast. All your dead dogs resurrected. Our bodies dancing in the night sweat. If I run out of clean movement, please hold my hand. I'll start the kettle when it snows. For you, I'll give up smoking, grow a belly, sweep the kitchen while you are sleeping. I know it isn't easy, and I know it shouldn't be. For you, I'll give up all my wandering. Bathe more often, brew the coffee, scratch your back when you've awoken from bad dreams. To die in Hartford is to at last find the front yard grown with tall grass, the raptured scent of your morning breath still rattling my chest. It will go on like this forever. To live in Hartford, a half-earned blessing. I promise I am glowing so close to the light. Good night. To a city baptized and forgiven, good night to blackbirds from the window in my kitchen, good night to any place that isn't here. Good night, my love. Your streets still echo and call that memory, and call that what it really is, and call my father when it's over, and tell him I died doing what I loved, and tell him I loved Hartford while I could, and tell him the sound he hears each morning is the blackbird singing me home. Last night, in bed, beside you, I heard the first song we ever danced to. I heard my last breath wear your glasses. I heard the nightfall something classic. And I swore you heard it too. A sound just like your old piano, a guard for all your childhood animals. A way of giving up on all we've left behind. Your heart, it shines me all my mercies, lights my way to draw the curtains. I heard the sound for the sake of sound, for the sake of home still rhymes with your flesh. I heard your bones still pink and glowing beneath our bed. I am sorry for the man I claim to be in poetry, but for you I swear I'll publish, quake my dust off, cut the bullshit. I promise someday I will make you proud of me. Singing hymns against your new skin window dint, a bedroom movement. If you will let me be forgiven, I'll bring oranges to the kitchen. I hope I die before you find out who I am. Only one truth left to offer. Praise it how they told me not to. Cigarette with morning coffee. I've seen the holy places in the sun. If we've only got one life here, it is not time enough to see you. Please slow me down to squeeze the last drop from your rind. Oh, Hartford, did you miss me? Did you find me where you left me? Oh, Hartford, can't you see I missed you too? I swear to speak more if you'll hear me, to sleep more when I'm weary, to sing your name into the evening, to not say Iowa each time the hurt is new. I swear to God someday I'll love you. I promise I won't be afraid to. I'd wait forever just so I could tell you so.
I would have cut it right there, and that could have been like the later end of the podcast. But I want to know the inspiration for writing that and where you were at, the ideas you had before you sat down to write that poem.
That was the one we were finishing up the first book, and I had an idea of what I wanted that poem to be, and I couldn't finish it in time. And it was about what it means to grow up, I think, and what it means to love something. And so there's a few times in that poem where there's sort of an echo of this repetition of the word sound, but also sort of similar constructive things within the body of it. So there's one part that says, a sound just like your old piano, a god for all your childhood animals. Like the way the syllables are working, the rhyme scheme of that, in addition to an earlier part of the poem where it does something similar. How do you tell the story of, like, as you get older, these things are just echoing, they are constantly returning, and how do you figure out how to tell something you love it the way you really do, where, again, this is about a city, but it's also about a person, it's also about everything. It's how do you talk about love. And so to die in Hartford is, the first line of that poem is to live, but it's much more broadly about how do I tell you that I love you. Like, how do you write about love in a way that says, like, our couch a decade softer, like, and I'm excited to see you, it's all good. Like, we can be the people who were 18 and we smoke cigarettes together, and we can be the people who are 50 and are fucking playing dominoes. So I'm like, nothing's better or worse. We change, but we change together.
That part paints a picture. I remember this, and when I this was when I was inside, I read this one, and this is the line that stuck out to me, like, just like the syllable count and almost the cadence. I was like, he could totally write a rap song.
Which one?
The line, the one to make you Sunday breakfast, all your dead dogs resurrected.
Yeah, that's
just
like that.
Yeah, it's like if you were doing that with a beat behind you, like a little bit louder, like, and you kept going for like 16 bars.
And that's
like,
the same one. That's the one that's same like as the line I mentioned before, but a god for all your childhood animals. Oh, a sound just like your old piano. Da 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 da. A sound just like your old piano. A god for all your childhood animals.
Like if it's like the length and the last words are rhyming, like that's what every rapper does. Like
and like the tappiness of like the syllables, where it's like all your dead dogs resurrect. Like
the way the syllables fall out your mouth is almost quantized, or like fucking. That's how dudes are. That's how you get your style when you rap. You can't do it that's like the same time every time, and every single dude will have like these little quirks and ticks and ways they do their cadence and ways they let certain words roll off their tongue, and that's kind of how that rapper gets defined as himself. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there that sound the same, but the ones that come up and like actually make music and stick out, it's because of that style that they use. And it's the same thing as fucking poetry, man. It's the same exact thing. Totally. Dude,
shout to poetry. All right.
Thank you
So much. I'm so excited. I hope if anyone has made it this far, I hope if you haven't already bought the book and you're at this point in the podcast, you owe it to yourself to buy this book. You've earned it now.
But let people know how they can.
Go to whichiswhypress.com, whichiswhypress.com, which is from the line in that Franco Hara poem, which is why I'm telling you about it, which is the greatest poem ever. So read Franco Hara, read this book, call someone in your life and tell them you love them. They probably will be happy to hear about it.
Hell yeah.
And you'll feel good that you did it. So just fucking do it. Like, don't just say you do it. Fucking do it. Right now. As soon as this is over, call someone. We're checking.
Turn off your iPhone.
I'm going to do it too, actually. I'll call my dad right now.
Click over and call your mother.
Yeah. I'm going to call my dad right now.
Do you have any events coming up or anything like that, or anything, readings? Do you have like did you have like a release or anything for this? Like,
we're doing it on Friday, November 23rd.
That's funny because today is actually Thanksgiving. Well, that's the day.
Tomorrow.
That's the day. It'll be that's the day we're gonna.
Tomorrow, November 23rd.
Yeah.
It'll be myself and an amazing poet named Sasha, and an amazing poet named Alicia, and an amazing poet named Cabello, and 5 amazing musicians: Chad Brown Springer, Pearl Sugar, Nadia Barnes, and Pete Winnie. Greetings and Pleasure Mad. It's just going to be like music and poetry together. Like, how do you combine these things? How do you continue to just keep combining things that can be beautiful together. So it's going to be a big old music and poetry and good time show.
Where?
At Warehouse in Hartford, 3580 Main Street, Hartford, Connecticut. You should be in Hartford. If you're listening to this, come to Hartford.
What time?
8 o'clock.
All right. Send me that information and I'll attach it
Yeah,
with all this shit.
for sure.
Thank you
It's
so
gonna be
much.
Beautiful. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Thank you for coming. I want to get you back at some point.
Yeah.
You know, just keep doing what you're doing, dude.
Fuck yeah.
Because I like I said, like, I don't know if it's like a empathy thing or like I rarely feel inspired.
Yeah.
But I have a couple people that kind of like do things that I like always have aspired to do.
Right.
Whether it's write a fucking album that's well received,
Right.
or do a fucking podcast.
Right.
But like you wrote this awesome book and you're from where I'm from, so that's
Yeah.
why I have like it's like I have a stake in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited, man.
Thanks
I'm so
for doing
honored to
that.
be here. Thanks for doing this. I love you.
You're very welcome.
Fuck yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Maddux.